Hey there everybody, and welcome to part 9 of the upbge tutorial series where I teach you how to make video games using the Blender game engine. So, in the last 2 or 3 episodes, we've kind of been dealing with coins, how to attract coins, how to collect coins, and how to count how many coins we have. And it's a good mechanic, however, it's very plain. So what I want to do in this episode is I want to add a little spice to it, and I'll show you what I mean in a second. So again, where we left off is we have our character, he can collect coins, and it adds to the counter. And when we respawn, boom, it goes to 0. The spice I want to add is I want to add sound effects to this. So now every time we collect a coin, it plays a little sound effect. And maybe every time we jump, there's also a sound effect, and one for respawning. This is just going to add a bit of dynamicness to our game. And of course, we need to do music and all this, but let's just start off with sound effects. So, how do we add a sound effect? So, a lot of so's. We're going to go to the coin node group. Remember, upon a condition that we are within some distance, it's going to move to our character, it's going to delete the coin, and then it's going to add 1 to the counter. And we can have it do something else. What we can do is Shift A, add a sound, if I can find sound. I know it's somewhere. Sound, we can add either a 2D or 3D sound. We're actually going to be adding a 2D sound after we remove the object. Now, what is the difference between a 2D and a 3D sound? Basically, a 2D sound just plays, okay? Nothing to it. Whereas a 3D sound cares about how close we are to the sound source in some sense. So it could be quiet, it can be loud, we could be like hearing it from around a wall. 2D just kind of plays it from the ether. And that's what we're going to be doing for this one. And maybe for other sound effects we do 3D. Either way, for the 2D sound effect, we know when it's going to play, but we need a sound file. In other words, a MP3 of a coin. Or maybe it could be a wave. Either way, here is a website, and I got this ready for you guys. Here's a website where you can get sound effects for free, including video game sounds. It's called freesound.org. And I just typed in coin right here, and let's see what sound effects we get. So some of these are not going to be good. So that's just a click. This is a coin spinning. This is actually the one we're going to be using because it sounds very video gamey. And some of these take a while to load. Basically just... Oh, that's pretty good. Basically, just find a sound effect that you like. I'm going for coins.1. When you download it, you're going to get a wave file, and you can just make a free account with this. What I am going to do is, now that we have our sound effect, and we can do one for jumping, yada yada, but for our coin, we want to import in the sound file. So once you've downloaded it, go to your folder, and I have both an MP3 and a wave. I don't think it matters. The wave is higher quality, so I'm going to pick that, and you can now see it is in our list. So select it, and now we hope that every time we collect a coin, there will be sound. There you go. It's interactive, but it's very boring, okay? Every time it's playing the same sound effect. So what can we do to make this dynamic? Well, we can change the pitch. So some of the coins could be higher pitch or lower pitch. We can have each one have a different volume. Let's see what that looks like. So if I bring the pitch down to 0.2, you can see it makes it a much darker sound. So what we can do is we can have the pitch be different for every coin, is the idea I had. Again, we do this with a random float, which is something we have talked about. We want to initialize this random number on initialization. So when the game starts, it's going to make a random number for each object that has this node network, and I want to connect this to the pitch. The pitch can be anything between 0.8, so a little below 1, so a little deep, all the way up to, like, let's say 1.6, so 60% higher pitch. So now when we play this, we expect there to be different sounds. Let's see. Yeah, you can see each one is not necessarily playing the same sound. Now, you want to kind of play around with the variation here, so maybe it's not too big, and we can do the same thing for the volume. So on initialization, make a random float for the volume, but volume goes between 0 and 1, although, yeah, I guess you can't go higher than 1. So let's make it go from like 60% volume to 100% volume, so they're not all equally loud. So this should add more variation. Yep. And these sound effects are pretty boring, but you can see we've added some variation, which makes it a bit better. Now, if you wanted to take this to the next level, what I would recommend is I'd recommend downloading a couple sound files, and then if we type in sound, and you can do get sound, you can have a bunch of sounds that we like flip between. But that's how you add a sound effect, so let's do one for jumping. Basically, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to type in jump. It's just going to be in a different part of the network. So let's see. That is not what we want. That's pretty good. See if we can do better. That's horrible. That's annoying. That's funny. Okay, I think we're going to go with the first one. So it sounds like this. It's kind of quiet. That's fine. I'm going to download it and put it, I guess, on the desktop. So I'm just going to do that in a second. And I've downloaded my jump sound effect. So now the question is, where in the network do we play that? So going to our character network, which again, this is where we store the movement and jumping and all of this. You're going to see when we hit spacebar, it's going to apply a force, in other words, jump, and we're pulsifying it. Now, I think this part might be important because otherwise it's going to play the sound over and over and over again, but we can see. So let's experiment. We're going to add a 2D sound. Again, same idea. This time we are going to, what are we going to do? We are going to import in jump MP3. Make sure you select that right there, and let's see what happens if it's triggered by hitting the spacebar. So it's definitely working, but I think it's playing like every time I'm holding spacebar. So let's see if I just hold it down. Yeah. So I don't know if this would make any difference, but I'm going to add a pulsify to the condition. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah. Now it makes more sense. Okay, beautiful. One thing I'm curious about, and I actually don't know this, is can we have the volume go above 1 if we kind of outsource this to a different node? So let's see, I made the volume 2. Can't really tell. Let's make the volume 5. Yeah, so it seems like we can. Yeah, so basically, that is how you add sound effects. Again, you can have this vary from every jump. So maybe what we can do is let's initialize another random float. So we can say every time the space key is pressed, generate a random number, and we can have it vary the pitch between like 0.6 and 1.2. So I'm just picking numbers for the pitch, and that should make each jump a bit different. Yep. It's a little hard to tell, but if we make it go to a higher pitch, it should be more obvious. Yep, now you can tell. Okay, so it's not the fanciest thing in the world, but it's sound effects that are varied, you know? Really, you just want to play around with these numbers until you get something you like. But that is how you do sound effects in the Blender game engine. So I think the next thing we're going to do, now that we have a very basic game where we can move, collect coins, and there's like sound effects and stuff, maybe we should have this score counter that's just kind of hovering. We should have it be like in the corner of the screen, which seems obvious how to do, except what if the cameras are switching and stuff like that. So that's what we're going to talk about, and I'll see you on the next one.